All right. My presentation is on understanding Gen Z. We are going to look at key characteristics to help us be better financial counselors. One way we're going to do this is by adapting what we learn about Gen Z to know better strategies and things we can do to be more relevant to the new generation. My name is Kathy Sininger. I am an AFC candidate. All right, I want to start first by talking about who is Gen Z. The reason I became interested in this topic was when I would tell people what I'm trying to do to become a financial counselor, they would say, "Oh, my kid could really use some financial counseling." So after hearing that a few times, I thought, well, what would make that different than just counseling anyone? What would I need to know to be better prepared to counsel young adults? So I kind of went down this path of understanding it better. And there's different views on what the actual age of Gen Z is, but in general, it's roughly those who are born between 1997 and 2013. So they are 12 to 26 years old. The oldest are just starting to turn 27 this year. The way generations are identified are usually through specific world events, technology advances, and social developments. You can go through a whole rabbit hole of understanding how generations are named, like who decides that, all of that. So that is a whole other topic. For my study, I focused on post-high school kids, so 18 to 27 years old. I have a little bit of a disclaimer to make before we start. I want to make sure that the information I'm sharing is used and received as I've intended it. Our strength as financial coaches lies in the ability to see our clients as individuals and understand their unique situations. So my hope is that the ideas I present here will help you leverage any generational insights to enhance your practice, and it's not intended to reinforce labels and stereotypes. All right, I want to have you think about, what do you know about Gen Z? What interactions have you had? What characteristics or habits have you noticed? Or even what stereotypes have you heard of? We are going to try something here.
I have socially awkward came into the chat.
Okay. I'm going to try a little whiteboard experience.
Oh, great.
So we will see if I can swing that. Maybe not, because I don't see it on my okay, we're going to skip the whiteboard and just go with the chat. Socially awkward. Okay.
There.
Live for today. Tech savvy. Love social media. They care about causes. These are all in line with all of the research.
Their phone is their life. And feel free to type on the whiteboard if you want. Can use the T for text.
Yeah, I'm not, someday I'll get there where that will be an easy switch for me to do
I
the
think it was
whiteboard.
under more. It's probably because you had
Yeah,
screen up. It was
it
harder.
minimized, yeah, and it didn't come up.
Want to be a millionaire,
Oh, nice. Sorry, I gotta get my
but do no work to get there. But do not work hard. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk about, what does the research say? The information that I used came from three different sources. Well, a lot of different sources, but one was a Gen Z panel that was a big study with about 3,000 students, older high school students. That was the Walton Family Foundation, a Pew Research project, and then a book from Roberta Katz called Gen Z Explained, of the different generational groups. And it shows, you can see that Gen Z will be the last, this is the US, Gen Z will be the last generation that is a majority white. So the next generation is called Generation Alpha, and they will be less, they'll be at 48%. So what can we do about that? If we know that this is important to them, we can work on our cultural competence. This means cultural competence refers to the ability to understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people across cultures. It also involves being aware of our own cultural lens. The key components of cultural competence are awareness, knowledge, skills, and attitude. A second thing we can do, which we do with all clients, is to use inclusive language, including asking about preferred pronouns if we haven't been told. And the last thing would be a welcoming space for all our clients. And that would be a virtual space. So make sure you know what's behind you, around you, and a physical space if we meet in person. Diversity is not just a buzzword for Gen Z, it's a fundamental expectation. There are two really good, if you want to kind of take a deeper dive into cultural competence, there are two really good webinars on the AFCP website, the intersection of language and inclusivity and finance in full color. So you can check those out. The next characteristic is that they are digital natives, which, the phone is their life. They're always with their phone. Digital natives means that they grew up with technology. Most of them they don't remember a time when technology was not a part of everyday life. Like me, you might know some that didn't, kind of the outliers, raised in homes where they didn't have phones, things like that. But in general, it is a big part of their life. So if you want to work with young adults, you'll need a robust online presence. This is where they'll find you, and also where they will look for reviews about you or information about you. And another thing you can do is to be aware of digital platforms and tools that they will be using. The top 3 platforms that Gen Z uses for information are Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And lastly, you can educate your clients on how they can verify and fact check the things that they're seeing online. You can point them to reliable websites so they can compare information and know if it's right or wrong. You can help them to learn how to question techniques that people are using, look for bias, or look to see if the person is getting any monetary gain from what they're posting. So I want to talk about financial influencers or finfluencers. I would ask if you have a client, I would find out who they're following. There are more than 100,000 accounts right now posting financial advice on social media. There's actually a lot of good information out there. And the positive of having this much information out there is that there's accessibility. So a lot of people who wouldn't be able to have this information have it at their fingertips. There's a lot of good engagement. So people are using real life examples and it's entertaining, so people are engaged. There's a lot of good community building. People feel a part of, a social finance network. And so they're more motivated to learn or to practice good habits. And lastly, it's timeliness. There's up-to-date information. So as things change, the people who are following can become aware. The negatives of this, as you would know, are outright misinformation. No one has to have credentials to be a financial expert on social media. So help them be aware of that just because they're giving information doesn't make them an expert. I already talked about bias and sponsorship. Another thing to watch out for is that they're usually giving one-size-fits-all advice. Like, here's what to do, which doesn't always apply to everyone's situation. There's also an overemphasis on quick gains. So here are some of the red flags that they can look out for. And you already know to warn your clients about this. These things have just been repackaged in a different form for Gen Z. So the first one is anything that offers promises, guarantees, or the best thing to do. There's not always the best thing to do for every single person. So help them be aware of that. Obscure stocks. With those, there's a lack of transparency, and those are the ones that are more susceptible to being manipulated. Sky high returns, we know that's always, anything that's like 300%, we need to help them understand what would be a reasonable rate of return. And then the last thing is alarm. Like, you need to act now. You need to take quick action because this opportunity won't be available. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what are they using? What apps, digital tools, online platforms? I want to know from you, what tools do you think they're using, or what are you using? Maybe some new tools or platforms or things that are new for you.
Things like YNAB and Monarch,
Mm-hmm.
Robinhood.
Yeah, I thought of a few. Chime is a banking app. Robinhood, Acorn, Stash are all investment platforms. Rocket Money, Venmo is old by now. Coinbase, Binance, Credit Karma. I think a lot of people are following their credit score, and their, especially since Mint went away, people moved over to Credit Karma, YNAB. Any others? Is anything else? Maybe you know of some that I don't know of.
That's a good
No?
list.
Okay. Um,
App.
it's surprising that this generation is more skeptical about cryptocurrency than millennials. So I don't know if it's not something they don't understand, or that, but it's good. It's good that they're skeptical, because if they don't understand, they shouldn't be in it. All right. Another characteristic is they have a high expectation for personalization. They want products, services, experiences that are tailored to them, that aren't their parents' experiences, but their own experiences. So we can build rapport, help them know that we understand them as an individual. In your initial sessions, you can use assessment tools that might help you understand them better. As with all clients, using attentive listening, authenticity, and using a client-centered approach is always going to be important. Another thing is we're going to need to make adjustments. The age of 18 to 26 is an age of really big changes. Graduation from college, new jobs, new relationships, moving locations. All of these factors will bring up a change in goals. So it's important for us to be on top of what's happening in their lives, so that we can change their financial plan when their goals change. As someone said, this age is a mix of anticipation and angst. Another characteristic is they are collaborative and community minded. And this is a really interesting characteristic. I don't know if it's a kind of reaction to a lot of them being in high school COVID years, and so they were isolated, but they really want to be with other people. All but one of the young adults that I talked with in my focus groups said they would much prefer to be in person rather than virtual, which I thought was interesting. They value teamwork, collective effort, input from their peers, and social connections, both online and offline. So the way we can use this information is, and this might be more difficult to implement if you meet with clients one-on-one, but if it's all possible, you can find ways for them to have community engagement. If you have several clients, then you could have focus groups or workshops that might put them working together. Another thing is you can point them to good places to to join online communities, be able to direct them to good information so that they don't get kind of down a rabbit hole with bad information. But there are a lot of things out there that they could join in. The next characteristic is mental health awareness. The incidence of mental health issues is higher in this population than it has been for any previous generation at this age. In some medical areas, they're calling this an epidemic, and that could be its own presentation. There's so much information about the whys, what to do about it. So for now, we're just going to know that mental health is a really important topic for them. The good news, so mental health issues and common challenges faced by young adults it's important for us to know about those and understand how that might impact their financial decisions. The good news is that those who are Gen Z are much more likely to talk about it and much more likely to seek treatment. So we know that already that we have a duty to warn. These suggestions for action are obviously not exclusive to this age group. These applications apply to every client. If you want to know more about duty to warn, you can look at the standard of practice number 9, and Andy has a really awesome article in the standard newsletter called Ethics and Confidentiality, if you want to look more into what your responsibility is in this area. Other things we can do, again, as I said, this is with all clients. We need to operate within a framework of compassion and patience. We need to help our clients, guide them in setting realistic goals and make small steps so that they are not getting too overwhelmed. We talked about having a safe and confidential space. We need to have a client-centered action plan so that they feel like they're in control and they're not being coerced or forced by us to do anything. And then lastly, to have a mental health referral network. That's a really important one, and to know when you need to use that. What would you add to this list? What other things can you do in this mental health awareness area?
I think just learning more about the age group and how mental health professionals work could help them understand if they need that referral.
Yeah. And maybe even work in tandem with a mental health professional. All right, the next characteristic is a complex economic environment. Every generation has faced unique economic challenges as they come into adulthood. Gen Z has unprecedented access to global news and information. So whether their environment is more complex, it's hard to tell, but they have a heightened awareness of what's happening. They also have constant exposure to economic crisis, political instability, and environmental concerns that amplify their sense of economic uncertainty. If they compare their economic prospects to those of previous generations, they might feel like those generations had more opportunity for things like stable employment, homeownership, affordable education, and greater financial security. Rapid technology advances and shifting social norms can create both opportunities and uncertainties for them. AI, gig economy, and remote work are reshaping traditional employment, which brings both flexibility and also brings instability. One way we can address this is through financial education, so that they feel like they're better equipped to participate and understand the financial world. Their self-identified biggest concerns are job security, housing, and how to pay for college. One question that I asked, I did some focus groups, some younger 18 to 22-year-olds and then 22 to 26-year-olds. And one question I asked them was, where have you learned about managing money? The number one was from parents. Almost all of them said what they learned from their parents was positive. A few of them said they learned what not to do. The second was financial literacy classes in high school, and those ranged from good to bad to non-existent. About half the states in the US have this as a requirement. So your state, that might not be a requirement. A third thing was they learned through personal experience. So having a job and making mistakes with their money. And then fourthly, they go online for information and tutorials. The next question I asked was, what have you learned from older generations? And they said, and this was mostly from parents, they learned about saving, they learned basics about how to open checking accounts, how to get a debit card. They learned about not going into debt. They also, it seemed like those with younger parents said they learned how to have healthy conversations about money. Those who had older parents said their parents were not transparent about, how much they made, how it worked, how much a house cost, things like that. They also said they learned that they need to work hard and put in effort to reach goals. Another question I asked was, what do you want older generations to know about you? There were a few themes in what they said. One was that there are multiple paths and ways to have a successful career. Second one was there are jobs and careers that are real, even if older generations don't understand what they are. And I thought this was funny as some of them were explaining to me what, I'm like, I know they're real, but they were worried that someone as old as me wouldn't know they were real. And the third one, and this was a really big one, is that they aren't lazy. I think they're getting a lot of that kind of stereotyped and labeled as lazy. And one of the young men said, people tell me not to get a student loan because it will just saddle me for life. But then they turn around and ask me, why am I living at home while I'm going to school? You should get out on your own. So I have a few videos I'm going to show, hopefully. I can. And you're going to see some awesome hairdos in this little montage.
Okay, so I think it's hard because older generations are used to having like a straight line path to like achieving their common goal. Whereas nowadays, I feel like there's lots of different pathways you can take to get where you want to be and like have the job you want to be. And I think that can be like hard for older generations to grasp with it. There's not just like one right way to do things nowadays. Like you can reach your goals in lots of different pathways.
Oops,
Okay, so
sorry.
It's not that we're lazy and not wanting to work hard. It's that it's not easy to balance that traditional route with school, living away from home. You kind of have to live at home or pick to work full time and not do school and do certain different routes that weren't necessarily traditional to do back in the day. I think that some of the perceived laziness about our generation is just because of the timeline of like an older generation is a lot faster than a newer generation due to like housing costs or other things that are just way more difficult now. And I think that when you see like someone who's our generation's doing things a lot slower or not getting to their goals and like the same pace that an older generation would, it'd just be like seen as they're lazy and they aren't working hard enough for it.
Okay, here are some interesting statistics that give us a glimpse into how Gen Zers are looking at their future. This comes from the panel from 3,000 students, juniors and seniors, looking ahead at what they're going to do. So you can read these. 64% are worried about financial constraints or obstacles reaching their goals. 41% unsure about how to choose the best path. 37% lack information about potential pathways, but 80% say that college is a top priority. Let's So the good news for us is that these statistics show some ways we can provide tangible direction to help them feel stable, confident, empowered, and better prepared to meet their goals. If there's one thing that really typifies Gen Z, it's that they want to be their best selves, but they don't want it to be in a vacuum. They want to be contributors to the world, to make to the world being a better place. Work ethic is highly personal and varies among generational ages. I feel like in talking to older generations, a lot of them felt there was they used the word coddled for this generation. The research shows that they do want to work and contribute. So we can keep that in mind. It might look different than previous generations, but they have that desire. So why is this important? What we've talked about the who and the what, but let's talk about why. Why does knowing about Gen Z matter? There are a few reasons that we might want to apply some of this information to our practice. Number one is so that we can be better professionals and better able to meet the needs of our clients in this age group. Number two is there are almost 70 million people that fall into this category in the US. They're a growing client base. They're an emerging segment of the workforce and beginning to make significant financial decisions. And number three is that our world will be shaped by what Gen Z brings to it. So by our being informed, we can be more adaptable. As this quote says, Gen Z will shape our future. Let's equip them with the tools they need to succeed. So thank you for participating. I would love to hear if you have any experience with this age group or maybe other age groups, if you've used generational insights to help you understand people. If you have any questions, any comments, I am open to it.
We have 2 questions in the chat. So one was, what are some of the not real jobs? Any examples of those?
Like influencers, that was a big one. That there are, I call them kids making a lot of money.
YouTuber, there you go.
Mhm. Yeah, YouTuber, those kinds of things, where people are making careers out of that. One of the girls in the group said, like she was talking about computer skills and like AI prompt writing, things like that, which I feel like I know that's a real job. So I don't know if I didn't take her seriously or she just thought I was super out of it and didn't know about AI. I'm not sure, but things like that, where they're not, it's not something that you would go to college for, wouldn't be listed. And there's probably more. There's probably more that I don't know about.
Maxine, do you want to ask your question?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the 69.3 million, that's a huge number. Is that in your 18 to 27 cohort, or is
That
that
is 12. That's 12 to 27.
12 to 27?
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's 12 to 27.
Yeah, one of the financial tools that I was going to mention is oh my gosh, it's a banking app that I use for my stepson. Oh my gosh. Well, never mind. I was gonna list it because it's for younger kids, but I wasn't.
Oh.
Is it green light?
Green light, yes, green light.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it's really good for younger kids, but I wasn't sure kind of where it tapped out. So, but 12 to 27. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.